Hello and welcome to Eye on Port, the program that brings Ghana's shipping and maritime industry closer to you. This program is proudly brought to you by the Ghana Revenue Authority, GOIL PLC, Serene Insurance, Ghana Link, and the Meridian Port Services MPS. The program is powered by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, and our media partner is the Business and Financial Times. Viewers, this week our topic for discussion is adopting global best practices towards a corruption-free maritime industry. We had the opportunity to have a great panel of experts to delve into this subject. We interacted with Vivek Menon with the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network, MACN, an institution leading the charge towards an improved industry that has transparency and integrity at its core. Also, we were joined by Soji Apampa, the CEO of the Convention on Business Integrity, that is CBI, and they have partnered with MACN and doing a tremendous job in Nigeria. We're also joined by the Deputy Director in charge of Inspection and Survey at the Ghana Maritime Authority to help give us the Ghanaian perspective. Take a listen.
Now, as you go about your duties, across the world, I just want to find out from you, what are some of the common cases of corruption in the industry that you have that has come to our attention?
Yeah, that's a very important question. And what we focus on, the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network primarily focuses on is the ports and terminal sector, the interaction between the private sector and public sector. And let me give you an example, and just from a common person's perspective, whenever we travel, we meet different public officials at different levels. It could be the health official, it could be immigration, customs. If you come to airport, you clear these public officials, and then you leave the airport. Similarly, for a seaport, it's a similar exercise. When a ship comes to port, it touches on various public officials, port health, immigration, customs, maritime administration, drug and law enforcement. So we have various public administrators coming on board in order to check, which is within their mandate. They need to ensure that the vessel is in compliance to the national regulations and rules, and also international regulations and rules. In that process, when there is a lack of transparency in the standard operating procedures, when there is inconsistency in applying standard operating procedures, if there are ones available and if they are transparent, this is where there is a room for having unethical demands. And what we see today from in many jurisdictions is public officials tend to use that discretionary power that they have in order to get something from the vessel to clear these vessels so that they can start operations. And when those demands are not met, it leads to delays. The clearance is not provided, or clearance is withheld, documents confiscated from the vessel in the context of that their vessel has not complied with the rules. So there seems to be a lack of clarity. As I mentioned, there is lack of transparency in some jurisdictions as well in what should be expected. And therefore, we see the risks are primarily due to delays, but in many cases also we have seen there are risks in terms of being harassed to some extent. Also, in some cases, they have been threatened. So there are various types of consequences that ships face when this lack of transparency is being put into practice. So those are the kind of data that we also collect in the work that we do, which is used to demonstrate to the government or also to the private sector that what is it that they need to be aware of and how they can be well prepared, and also how to find solutions on the ground. So these are some of the problems that we try and address in the ports and terminals sector.
You heard Vivek mention some of the issues of corruption they identify in the course of their work across the globe. And you are their representatives on the African continent. I just want to find out from you, what are some of the typical cases of corruption that arise in the maritime industry in Africa that has come to your attention?
Okay, so it's never blatant. It's not usually blatant, although there are blatant ones when someone demands that in order for me to give your vessel a clean bill of health, you have to pay this sum of money. That is very crude, and the officials shy away from that sort. Instead, it starts with an interpretation or a misinterpretation, deliberate misinterpretation of whether or not you have complied with the standard. So it says, okay, give me the documents, looks at the paperwork, and says, this is not acceptable here in this particular country. But you say, I've been sailing all over the world. Nobody's ever raised this issue. But here we raise that issue. And by the way, it's going to cost you so much per crew member, for instance. So it happens a lot on the immigration side that there are debates around what is a travel document, what is the standard for a seaman's book or for a passport. And you would think that those are fundamental and things that should be clear, but rather there's a lot of debate around it. And sometimes the documents get seized and taken off the vessel. And you know, that raises panic immediately. And then somebody's saying, well, if you play ball and you pay this, we will overlook it this time. And you're still arguing that, what are you overlooking? Because I haven't contravened anything. But those are the kinds of scenarios that are now very common. So so you have it, each agency has its own style and its own flavor of what they might come up with. But also to say on behalf of the officials that sometimes, even before they even say anything, they are offered by a jittery captain, they're offered something which they should not be offered. So that also happens. So it's both ways that MACN tries to encourage both the captains not to offer and the officials not to accept, and the officials not to demand and the captains not to give. So that is the situation.
Captain, let me find out from you. You had issues of corruption from both sides, both Vivek and then Mr. Apampa. Tell us, has there been any occasion where issues of corruption has come to the attention of the Ghana Maritime Authority? And what's the nature of these issues?
Like the other speakers have said, it comes sometimes with it. I'll talk about positive control inspections again. So an inspector boards a ship and then he finds out there are A, B, C, D deficiencies. And some of the deficiencies come as violations of, for instance, our Maritime Pollution Act, and therefore is accompanied by some fines, quite heavy sometimes. For instance, if there's a fine of about $60,000 on the vessel, and in addition to that, this the deficiencies was going to go into the database. That probably was going to go a long way to label the ship as, for instance, a high-risk ship.
Right.
And the master would have a lot of questions to answer to the company. He would be prepared to give, for instance, an official about $10,000 so that he forgets about the $60,000 and then forgoes the inclusion of the deficiencies in the database, for instance. And this happens a lot. The way out for us was for the authority to sit, and then we realized that if you had old master mariners, old chief engineers who were self-made and just were so tired of sailing and wanted to come home, if you employed such people of such caliber, the probability that they will fall for these things was very little, and that's what we did. So presently, the authority has a lot of such old seafarers, and then we have young ones that are being trained. And I can tell you, when the positive control officer picks his bag and he's going on board, he has water, he has everything. So we have been accused by some of the shipping agents that we don't even want to take water on board the ship. Well, the idea is not to take anything at all, because you take one small thing and then it becomes something else. The line is so thin, we don't want to even look at the line. So that's what happens with us, and that's how come we are conquering this thing about the bribe and that kind of thing. It is really both ways. For us, the other side where the officer will ask is completely out. That one is out completely. The problem is when you are approached by the ship officer, and it happens very often. So long as you have deficiencies that will go on record, that will be a taint on the ship's name, and company will will come troubling you. That has not stopped. It's still ongoing. Thank you.
But let me go to Vivek. And in your opening speech at the Vessel Clearance Workshop, which was in Ghana here, you noted that evidence-based methods of analyzing corruption risks are key in your agenda. Vivek, can you tell us about this? And what are some of the data-driven research that your outfit has come up with or encountered in your dealings so far?
Yeah, thank you for that question, and it's an important one. Many of us must be familiar with the perception-based indices that are available globally on countries. When MACN started its work, it was very, very important to understand how we are going to measure, one, what is the problem, what is the quantum of the problem, and very importantly, how are we going to measure progress, if there is any progress? Because shipping for many, many years have been struggling with this challenge. It is not a new challenge. So in order to address that, at the very beginning, when MACN was established, it started off with what we call an anonymous incident data reporting system. It is still there. 10 years on, I must say, or 10, 11 years on, I must say, we have been collecting this type of incident data, which is not a perception of what happened in the port. Or what I mean by that is, when I came to a port, it is not me telling you how I felt, how the public official behaved in front of me. It is what happened, what transpired, and that is something that I can share with MACN. So it is a simple form that anyone can report, and it is on our website. And today, over the last 10 to 11 years, we've been collecting data, and we have more than 53,000 incidents reported all across the globe. It covers, if I'm correct, almost 150 countries, close to 1,200 ports. So we have data from all over the world where it shows that no country is immune to this challenge. No port is immune to this challenge. And there's a slide that we normally share. You can actually see the dots all across the globe where these problems are reported. And it looks like a pandemic that never went away, with no vaccination shot, unfortunately.
I'm going to Mr. Apampa now and to find out from you why you think it's important to have standardized operating procedures from all actors across the industry in Africa.
Well, the first thing is that you cannot establish an infraction if there's no standard. So that's the first thing. All sides need to agree.
Right.
What is the standard for me to meet? What is the evidence that is required for me to show you I have met it? So that it becomes objective rather than based on the discretion of the officer. So because it's objective, then even the seafarers know, in this case, we're wrong. Okay, this is a genuine fine. We need to pay, and we can remedy this. We'll try and do it in port here. Or, sir, all evidence shows that I have met it. So why do I have an infraction? And they can escalate the issue. And if there's an ombudsperson, that can help them also get relief. So that there's an independent party that looks at the standard of evidence and then upholds it and says, no, in this case, the vessel is correct. They have met the standard. Sorry, please, you cannot give a fine for that. So that is why you need it. Otherwise, you can't have a level playing field and you don't have any way of arbitrating very quickly between the vessels and their agents and the public official on the other side.
I just want to find out from you what some of the steps are that the Ghana Maritime Authority is undertaking to ensure that we have best practices and that in terms of vessel clearance and other activities in the maritime industry.
Take for instance, GPHA is the landlord of the port.
Yes.
GPHA has its processes. So we will have to tie it into the discussion that Vivek and Soji have earlier on been saying, harmonizing the processes,
right,
so that the various institutions can come together and understand each other. Because the authority cannot, for instance, cross the line into GRA's jurisdiction and start making rules for GRA simply because the authority thinks that we have to clear vessels quickly.
Yeah.
Same way, GPHA has its rules and SOPs. The authority cannot cross those lines. So it is a very difficult question to answer for all the other institutions. It can only be answered for the authority and what we do. And I'm saying that for ships, I mean, what we do is to inspect ships to make sure they are safe and there are processes. And we being part of the Abuja MOU, the guidelines are very clear as to what to do, what not to do, and how to do it. So with regards to clearance of vessels, that is where it stops for the authority. So probably Vivek will have to come in-house and start introducing the harmonized system. That would be very, very important. And then he talked about the port manual. That makes it easy. Everybody has to look at it, and then we know what processes we have to follow. For now, unfortunately, we don't have that exactly. And I think that's what we should be looking at that.
All right, that was a very insightful discussion with our guest on adopting global best practices towards a corruption-free maritime industry. Now let us hear some of your questions on the subject we have just discussed. After we go on break, we'll be back with more news. Hi, my name is Brian Ntema. When will MACN implement the strategy in Ghana?
The MACN expansion program in itself is looking at West and Central Africa to start with, because we want to see how we can work together with various agencies and governments across the West and Central Africa. So this is already, you could say, initiated.
My name is Abu. Can Mr. Apampa speak to the obstacles they have faced in their quest to inspire a corruption-free industry in Nigeria?
Yeah, biggest obstacle is professionals saying, how do you want us to survive? If we deal with corruption, how do you want us to survive? And also the prisoner's dilemma. If I stop doing what is corrupt and the other person doesn't stop, well, they have some kind of competitive advantage over me. You know, which is why collective action actually makes sense. If everybody believes that this is not right, then coming together to find a common solution makes sense.
This question goes to Captain Thompson. Aside of vessel clearance issues in the industry, are there other corruption-related activities that spring up? My name is Esther.
Definitely. There will be other corruption-related activities. I'll give you a very interesting example. One of the representatives of the agencies, local agencies in Tema, realizing that there were instances where port control officers went on board ships to find them. What he did was he goes ahead to the ship. Of course, he's the agent, so he's part of the clearing party. He goes ahead to the ships and tells the captain, please, if you don't want trouble from these port control officers, you give me $2,000 and I'll go to them and then settle them before they come on board the ship, and then you don't have trouble. Otherwise, when they come on board your ship, they'll find trouble, and then the deficiencies will go against you, and then they'll find you more than that anyway.
Every now and again, GOIL makes good things happen. This time, GOIL has introduced Super XP Ron 95, a higher grade fuel loaded with additives and yet sold at the same price as normal fuel. GOIL Super XP Ron 95 enhances engine performance like never before. It maintains the engine by keeping it clean from carbon deposits. GOIL Super XP Ron 95 is designed to burn slowly and thus improves fuel economy, making you save money after several kilometers. GOIL Super XP Ron 95 gives you a smooth driving experience, that is, less vibrations. Fill up with GOIL Super XP Ron 95. Now there's no need to pay more for any higher grade fuel. GOIL has that sorted. GOIL, good energy.
Electricity, then pay your taxes. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Tell God, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifu, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is, you still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
Impressive factory. If only I had listened to you, I wouldn't have been in this mess. That devastating fire virtually wiped out the whole factory and my warehouse.
Remember my misfortunes last year? Serene Insurance Asset All Risk Fire policy that I took were there to pay for my damaged stocks in the warehouse. And my machines that were affected by the floods have been replaced. My accident vehicle is back on the road thanks to Serene Insurance Motor Policy. Currently, my goods are on the IC, covered with their marine cargo insurance policy. I was just telling Ajima about Serene Insurance.
Oh, Ajima,
tell him more.
As a road contractor,
I make sure I do my contractors all risk insurance
for the projects and then workers' compensation for all the workers on site. With Serene Insurance, they will make sure they will cover your unknown tomorrow today.
Serene Insurance, a new face of insurance. Call us now.
MPS Terminal 3 is Africa's new state-of-the-art container terminal at Tema Port. For manufacturers, agro-processors and traders, the new port means business can be done faster. This infrastructure boost will improve Ghana's port handling capacity, connect more trading routes, and oil the engine of growth for the economy, creating greater opportunities across all sectors as Africa's markets merge and become the largest trading bloc globally. MPS, we connect, you thrive.
Welcome back from the break. Now some local news and activities within Ghana's port and maritime industry next. The headquarters of the Burkina Faso Shippers Council, also known as the CBC in Ghana, has been inaugurated in Tema, which will serve as the administrative center for the council's activities in Ghana. The three-story ultra-modern office complex situated within the Tema Port Enclave is expected to boost trade and transport facilitation related to the transit business between Ghana and Burkina Faso. The commissioning ceremony brought together government officials and shipping sector stakeholders from both countries. Speaking at the ceremony, the Ghana rep for the Burkina Faso Shippers Council, Dennis Bado, thanked all actors responsible for the completion of the project.
À vous tous, distingués invités.
Indeed, through these achievements, you are giving this beautiful city of Tema a remarkable infrastructural pool and facilitating the transport chain and thus trade between Burkina Faso and the Republic of Ghana.
The director of Port Tema, Sandra Opoku, assured that the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority will continuously enhance all measures that will sustain and prosper the transit trade.
We began with the provision of land to the transit representatives to build offices and warehouses to support their administrative and operational activities. In our bid to reduce the cost of doing business in our ports, especially for our transit customers, rebates are granted on cargo volumes and 21 days rent-free for all transit cargoes. We have also automated our ports processes to reduce delays.
The board chairman of the Burkina Faso Shippers Council, Al Hassan Seynou, said the construction of the building is part of a vast infrastructural program embarked on by the governing body of the CBC through its strategic development plan of 2014 to 2018.
Occasion solennelle d'inauguration du nouveau bâtiment.
It was in 2011 that the administrative and port authorities of Ghana were pleased to grant Burkina Faso, through the Burkinabe Shippers Council, this space of 3,075 meters squared to build the headquarters of the CBC. Here we are today at the realization of this ambitious project that we have initiated together.
Conseil Burkinabe des chargeurs.
Deputy Transport Minister Frederick Obeng Adom called for strengthened collaboration towards the shared objectives of both countries.
As we see here, the commissioning of this edifice. It is also to foster and also to encourage the objective as we have with the African Continental Free Trade Area, which seeks to also reduce poverty and share prosperity between member countries.
According to the Minister for Transport for Burkina Faso, Roland Somda, the edifice will enhance the Burkina Faso Shippers Council operations and help it deliver on its mandate.
De saluer et de féliciter l'ensemble des acteurs
to ensure a regular supply of products, goods and various commodities to Burkina Faso in the best conditions of cost, speed and security, to assist the shippers and to protect their interests in the field, to contribute to the competitiveness of the Burkinabe export products on the international market, to undertake all studies and research in the field of transport for the benefit of shippers and the national economy, and finally to ensure the implementation of measures taken by the state to rationalize the transport and logistics chain.
Néanmoins, je voudrais traduire ma reconnaissance.
The United States Coast Guard has paid a working visit to the port of Tema to assess the effectiveness of Ghana's implementation of the International Ship and Port Facility Security Code and discussed best practices for the development of mutual interest in the maritime trade. This forms part of the International Port Security Program, through which the U.S. Coast Guard assists nations enhance their implementation of the ISPS code. The team from the U.S. Coast Guard was accompanied by the Ghana Maritime Authority, the agency responsible for enforcing international maritime conventions and national rules and regulations bordering the maritime industry. The delegation paid a visit to the Director General and top management of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, where the two parties expressed their shared interests.
So soon is another time for them to be here to conduct the assessment, so that it will help us to do even better in the effective implementation of the code. They've been here since Saturday. As you know, they came to the Ghana Maritime Authority head office yesterday and had interaction with my Director General and his technical staff. Today, as the program shows, they are going to be here, and as KETC demands, they will have to call on you first to interact with you before we go to the field.
And I think as ports, we've taken these reports very seriously, working with the Ghana Maritime Authority. Most of the time after your visits, they send us the feedback and then point out all the areas that needed to be addressed. And we took them quite seriously and also took all necessary measures to address them.
Within the operational areas of the Tema port, the team were briefed on the various processes undertaken to enhance security, such as 24-hour CCTV surveillance, cargo inspection and scanning procedures, access control, and coordinated initiatives between GPHA and its allied security agencies. International security specialist with the IPS program, Dean Horton, shared his impression on security processes at the port of Tema.
So we do an assessment, and so we have been here all morning in Tema Port, and I've been very impressed. For instance, one of the things I'll take away is the use of body cameras on the security personnel. Frankly, I don't think I've ever seen that before, and so that'll be something that I take away from here and share that with other ports, so that maybe they can use that and improve their security.
Now let us take our lenses to the global stage and pick a few international shipping and maritime industry news. Next. South Korean shipbuilding major Korea Shipbuilding and Offshore Engineering, KSOE, has won an order for the construction of 12 very large container ships from an unnamed European shipping company. The vessels will be built by KSOE's subsidiary Hyundai Samho Heavy Industries, and the contract is worth 2.52 trillion South Korean won, equivalent to $2 billion US. KSOE said that the ships will be delivered by the end of 2026. According to Yonhap, the container ships will be powered by methanol. Unconfirmed shipbroker reports have linked French CMA CGM to the order. The Panama Canal reports that a fire broke out in the engine room of the container vessel Cape Corsia on Monday morning, 30th of January, while the vessel was moving towards the PSA port in the Pacific. Data from vessels value show that the new Panamax container vessel with carrying capacity of 11,010 TEU, built in 2017, is owned by Costamare from Greece and operated by Swiss-based MSC. According to the Panama Canal Authority, the incident was reported immediately and all security procedures were activated. Panama's National Aeronaval Service dispatched 2 vessels to the scene to provide assistance. The fire outbreak was put under control and there were no injuries reported in the accident, according to the Canal Authority. The Maltese-flagged container ship is moored in the port of Rodman in Panama. It's time for our Word of the Day segment that brings to you words, jargons, terminologies that we often use in this industry so you can get familiar with them. Today's word is consolidation. Consolidation is cargo consisting of shipments of 2 or more shippers or suppliers. Container load shipments may be consolidated for 1 or more consignees. It's time for the schedule of vessels that have berthed within the ports of Tema and Takoradi and at the anchorages of both ports and those expected in the coming weeks, plus the Bank of Ghana exchange rates, which you may need to know to clear your cargo with. This is where we draw the curtain on today's edition of Eye on Port. We hope you've been informed and educated. Remember, all Eye on Port content can be found on our YouTube channel, Eye on Port. Subscribe, like, and give us feedback. Thank you for watching.